Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently listening to this podcast, as well as watching our video blog. Today's February the 14th. All those lovebirds out there, happy Valentine's Day, and even those that are not with their significant other or the one that they would want to be with. I hope you guys have a wonderful day anyway. Trust me, it's not all that, great walk in the park that will satisfy your desire, as an individual. Don't rush things. If you're single today, enjoy your time being single. And if you're with your, significant other or your loved one or your, partner, make sure to make that person feel special. So this is a special shout out to my special person. Okay, she's at work right now, so I can't really, reveal her name because I didn't ask permission, but she knows who she is. Anyway, with that said, as you all know, my background is in international affairs, economic development, trade, commercial development, as well as finance, accounting, and overall economic, development in general in terms of building markets and the capacities of countries worldwide to increase their profile in job creation, attracting foreign direct investment, increasing trade volume, as well as their export initiative to other countries. So my platform, the Face Economics platform, is the utilization of the social media platform in economic development worldwide. It's never been utilized before because we've never had social media in the past couple of decades. We're basically test driving this medium, and to be honest, I feel fairly optimistic in spite of all these witch hunts that's happening pertaining to the platform itself. There's been quite a bit of hearings on Capitol Hill with social media giants. The platform's not perfect. I don't think they'll ever be perfect. And just like anything else, if people misuse the platform, then it's not going to benefit anybody. Okay, so take it with that grain of salt. I mean, I'm not 100%, buying into the platform itself right now because I think it still has a lot of flaws and a lot of, things that needs to be fixed within its armor. Okay. But just like anything else, nothing is perfect. But it's up to us to build capacity and improve the utility of the social media platform for the next generations to be able to use. With that said, as you all know, Tucker Carlson did an interview with Mr. Putin last week, and it's the very first interview since the mass escalation of the war that started basically in 2014, and it kind of you know persisted up until 2020 when the Russians basically had decided to engage full force in 2022. And so I've been trying to pay attention um, to what's been going on. I mean, I'm not the expert by any means regarding, the rules of engagement in a wars, theater, but I am somewhat of, a student regarding um, situational warfare that could manifest itself by disrupting markets, which is my bread and butter. I focus on emerging and frontier markets of Central and Eastern Europe and building, a trade relationship with the U.S. And so I do have some sort of experience and background and overall credibility pertaining to economic development and developing institutions and capacity in the region. With that said, Um, I'm extremely concerned, okay, because I've, I mean, I've listened to both sides basically, Zelensky's side and now Putin's side that he just basically engaged in on this interview for 2 hours, uh, which was viewed uh, millions by millions and millions of people interested in this war issue. People around the world, not just in the US and Europe, but people around the world, right? And in 5 days, millions of millions. I mean, Tucker Carlson's social media platform alone on his YouTube channel um, hit amassed to over 16 million views. That's just one channel. Okay. So clearly there is a lot of interest in this war. And most of the people that are paying attention regarding this war are pretty much looking at a solution. They're watching and listening carefully to the verbiage used by both sides. You know, and I don't think they're really, these viewers are interested in taking sides. I think they're just trying to figure out if there is a logical, credible, and doable, solution to this war. And I'm sensing there's been several opportunities for the war to be de-escalate and to, for the region to return to normalcy. I mean, if you have millions of millions, even NBC News had 17 million views. Okay. If you have millions and millions of people interested in having this war end, why hasn't both sides come up with a solution? And I'm guessing because it's not just a two-party situation. I think there's a third, fourth, fifth parties involved, and it makes things very much difficult to engage in a decision-making process when you're trying to look for one solution and the solution is being provided by 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10, you know, people or organization or systems uh, to try to solve one problem, which is to end the war. Okay, folks. It doesn't take us rocket science to know that if you put, 10 people from various backgrounds in one room and have all those 10 peoples have their own separate agenda and they all are fixed on, getting what they want, then you'll never come into any solution. I've learned this from an executive level in a board situation on a business decision-making capacity. I've dealt with a lot of these decision-making activities throughout my career as a consultant, as someone that people deem as a subject matter expert in emerging and frontier markets of Central and Eastern Europe, and also working in the U.S. federal government and various private sector activity, and even when as a U.S. Senate candidate, I campaigned as an independent U.S. Senate candidate because I want to be that outsider looking in and figuring out what's going on between the Democratic and the Republican parties, because I worked for both of them in my previous careers, advised politicians from both, sides of the aisles, lobbied some, politicians from both sides of the aisles as well. So I know when two people are banging heads, it's already hard. When you have two people, two organizations banging heads, imagine 10 and more individuals or organizations banging heads and trying to get what they want instead of just two, and have them hash out their differences and talk things out and come with one solution. Okay, it doesn't take rocket science to figure this out, folks. And what I'll do is I'll play this excerpt from Tucker Carlson's interview with Mr. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, that took about 2 years before a Western journalist was even able to interview him. But to be honest and be fair and balanced, and to be, straightforward, I thought he sounded just like any other European Union leader, especially the ones that are making decisions in Brussels. Not so much, maybe from the US or Washington, D.C. side, but he sounded just like any other Western European Union member country leader. He said doesn't want, Nazism to basically rear its ugly head again in Europe, because that's the main culprit of, the escalation that took place in World War II in Europe. He specifically said that. And just like any other European Union member country leaders, they specifically, defined that they do not want the return of Nazism ideologies in Europe. So, I mean, I've been studying European history ever since I was, in college, or even before I entered college. Back in high school, when I was a member of the United Nations club at my high school, when I competed in at Model United Nations, when would look at various cases. At that time, we were looking at Kosovo when I was in high school. And so I tried to, kind of key in on issues that, I mean, are pretty simple to fix if you truly want to fix them. There are people on this planet that wants to be stuck on stupid. I mean, if you want to be stuck on stupid, be stuck on stupid, but don't enter a leadership role. Don't get into positions that has to, make extreme decisions that would affect so many people's lives. Feel free to be stuck on stupid, but the world does not want to be stuck on stupid, unfortunately. The world wants to move on. They want to increase capacity. They want to, have a better life. The world wants to basically lift itself up from poverty, from human suffering and hardship. So if you want to be that stuck on stupid leader that wants to impose your stupidity on other people, then don't run for public office. Or even if you did run, and I guess the only people that would vote for you if you did run are the same people that are stuck on stupid with you. Same stuck on stupid, ignorant people that wants to be, around a leader, or not. I wouldn't even classify them as a leader. Somebody that is a useful idiot. I call people that are stuck on stupid as a useful idiot that people would want to support to basically make sure that everything, the status quo, stays the same, and their stuck on stupid agenda is implemented by the stuck on stupid useful idiot that is making decision on their behalf. Anyway, folks, with that said, let me share my screen and have you guys listen to this interview between Tucker Carlson and Mr. Putin. And this segment is actually a pretty compelling segment to listen to. Really, the interview in itself, it'll take at least a couple of months before anyone finish up talking about some of the key points that was mentioned in this interview. I mean, it's not the most structured interview, and I'm kind of glad it's not. It's not the perfect interview that, the media industries normally want to promote, because the media industry in the U.S. that are so powerful, they have a narrative that they want to preserve. So I'm kind of glad that Tucker Carlson didn't, create a mold to fit into the typical narrative of the major corporations that is owned these they've owned this various giants, media giants, and they want one narrative and one narrative alone to be shared with the populations of millions of people in America that are diversified population. We're not just all stuck on stupid. There are some of us that actually want to understand the truth and know the truth and opine on the truth. And I'm glad that Tucker Carlson, broke from the mold. I mean, he is the byproduct of, CNN, MSNBC, and all these major, TV channels that fired him. And they fired him because he didn't want to drink the Kool-Aid. And so he said to himself, he's going to do things his way, and he's going to create his, his own channel, the TCN, to counter the narrative that is one-sided and is paid for by special interests in the U.S. I'm truly happy for him. He vindicated himself. You know what? He was bamboozled. He was beaten up publicly. People would make fun of him because he was let go for basically trying to service the American public. He's not trying to sell anything to the American public. He's trying to serve them. Okay, folks. So listen to this quick excerpt on this interview, and I'll try to opine a little bit more regarding what they were talking about and why I believe those people that are not stuck on stupid would appreciate it. If you're stuck on stupid, then you might as well just move on. Don't even subscribe to our channel. Don't listen to what we say and whatever it is that we share. Go about your own way living in that wheel that you chase like a mouse that circulates endlessly and living a life that has no meaning, has no purpose, and in all reality doesn't really amount to anything. Okay, if you want to be stuck on stupid, feel free to be stuck on stupid, but the rest of us Americans no longer wants to be that participant in a sort of circus show of a political system that don't even respect us. They don't even respect our intelligence. They don't even respect our hard-earned taxes that we pay them so that they can make decision on our behalf, because after all, we hire these people. All these government officials are supposed to be looking out for our best interests, but now it seems to me that's like we're serving them more than they're serving us. It's strange, how things are kind of evolving in the U.S. But let me get off of my, overall sentiments right now, and I'll just have you listen to this conversation between Tucker Carlson and Putin.
Will there be talks, and why haven't there been talks about resolving the conflict in Ukraine? Peace talks.
Really? They have been. They reached a very high stage of coordination of positions in a complex process, but still they were almost finalized. But after we withdrew our troops from Kiev, as I have already said, the other side threw away all these agreements and obeyed the instructions of Western countries, European countries, and the United States to fight Russia to the bitter end. Moreover, the president of Ukraine has legislated a ban on negotiating with Russia. He signed a decree forbidding everyone to negotiate with Russia. But how are we going to negotiate if he forbade himself and everyone to do this? We know that he is putting forward some ideas about the settlement, but in order to agree on something, We need to have a dialogue. Is that not right?
Well, but you wouldn't be speaking to the Ukrainian president, you'd be speaking to the American president. When was the last time you spoke to Joe Biden?
I cannot remember when I talked to him. I do not remember. We can look it up.
You don't remember?
No. Why? Do I have to remember everything? I have my own things to do. We have domestic political affairs.
Well, he's funding the war that you're fighting, so I would think that would be memorable.
Well, yes, he funds, but I talked to him before the special military operation, of course. And I said to him then, by the way, I will not go into details, I never do, but I said to him then, I believe that you are making a huge mistake of historic proportions by supporting everything that is happening there in Ukraine by pushing Russia away. I told him repeatedly, by the way. I think that would be correct if I stop here.
What did he say?
Ask him, please. It is easier for you. You are a citizen of the United States. Go and ask him. It is not appropriate for me to comment on our conversation.
But you haven't spoken to him since before February of 2022.
No, we haven't spoken. Certain contacts are being maintained, though. Speaking of which, do you remember what I told you about my proposal to work together on a missile defense system?
Yes.
You can ask all of them. All of them are safe and sound, thank God. The former president, Condoleezza, is safe and sound, and I think Mr. Gates and the current director of the intelligence agency, Mr. Burns, the then ambassador to Russia, in my opinion, are a very successful ambassador. They were all witnesses to these conversations. Ask them. Same here. If you are interested in what Mr. President Biden responded to me, ask him. At any rate, I talked to him about it.
I'm definitely interested, but from the outside, it seems like this could devolve or evolve into something that brings the entire world into conflict and could initiate a nuclear launch. And so why don't you just call Biden and say, let's work this out?
What's there to work out? It's very simple. I repeat, we have contacts through various agencies. I will tell you what we are saying on this matter and what we are conveying to the US leadership. If you really want to stop fighting, you need to stop supplying weapons. It will be over within a few weeks. That's it. And then we can agree on some terms. Before you do that, stop. What's easier? Why would I call him? What should I talk to him about? Or beg him for what?
And what messages do you get back?
You're going to deliver such and such weapons to Ukraine? Oh, I'm afraid, please don't. What is there to talk about?
Do you think NATO is worried about this becoming a global war or a nuclear conflict?
At least that's what they're talking about. And they're trying to intimidate their own population with an imaginary Russian threat. This is an obvious fact. And thinking people, not Philistines, but thinking people, analysts, those who are engaged in real politics, just smart people, understand perfectly well that this is a fake. They're trying to fuel the Russian threat.
The threat I think you're referring to is a Russian invasion of Poland, Latvia, expansionist behavior. Can you imagine a scenario where you sent Russian troops to Poland?
Only in one case, if Poland attacks Russia. Why? Because we have no interest in Poland, Latvia, or anywhere else. Why would we do that? We simply don't have any interest. It's just threat mongering.
Well, the argument, I know you know this, is that, well, he invaded Ukraine. He has territorial aims across the continent, and you're saying unequivocally you don't.
It is absolutely out of the question. You just don't have to be any kind of analyst. It goes against common sense to get involved in some kind of a global war. And a global war will bring all humanity to the brink of destruction. It's obvious. There are certainly means of deterrence. They have been scaring everyone with us all along. Tomorrow, Russia will use tactical nuclear weapons. Tomorrow, Russia will use that. No, the day after tomorrow. So what? In order to extort additional money from US taxpayers and European taxpayers in the confrontation with Russia in the Ukrainian theater of war. The goal is to weaken Russia as much as possible.
One of our senior United States senators from the state of New York, Chuck Schumer, said yesterday, I believe, that we have to continue to fund the Ukrainian effort, or U.S. soldiers, citizens could wind up fighting there. How do you assess that?
This is a provocation, and a cheap provocation at that. I do not understand why American soldiers should fight in Ukraine. There are mercenaries from the United States there. The bigger number of mercenaries comes from Poland, with mercenaries from the United States in second place, and mercenaries from Georgia in third place. Well, if somebody has the desire to send regular troops, that would certainly bring humanity to the brink of a very serious global conflict. This is obvious. Do the United States need this? What for? Thousands of miles away from your national territory. Don't you have anything better to do? You have issues on the border, issues with migration, issues with the national debt, more than $33 trillion. You have nothing better to do, so you should fight in Ukraine? Wouldn't it be better to negotiate with Russia? Make an agreement, already understanding the situation that is developing today, realizing that Russia will fight for its interests to the end? And realizing this, actually return to common sense, start respecting our country and its interests, and look for certain solutions. It seems to me that this is much smarter and more rational.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
Okay, folks. Again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure things out here. So if the Republicans are attacking Biden for talking to Vladimir Putin 2 years ago, which kind of prevented him from wanting to talk, I guess, and then now that a Democratic senator is saying that, there could be a potential escalation involving American soldiers in a conflict that is a civil war conflict. This is not something that the world needs to participate in, obviously. And Vladimir Putin clearly stated that he's not interested in going into any World War III situation or even attacking anyone unless they attack him, which I don't think any other NATO countries would want to attack Russia over Ukraine. I mean, it's, the war situation is a civil war that's taking place on the eastern side of Ukraine. I just don't get it. Why is this war still, happening? I mean, a civil war could be stopped in a matter of days. It's within the, a small confine of the eastern section of Ukraine. I mean, it's baffling to me, right? There's been an ongoing war for 2 years, and now we're just hearing from the Russian side. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. Anyway, folks, I just thought I'd share that, portion of the interview with you, just because I think, again, talking about putting, people in one room from various different backgrounds with various different objectives that are hell bent on, obtaining those objectives, then you'll never get any form of solutions whatsoever. That's just the reality of the meeting of the minds, you know, um, especially if their objectives are in opposition of each other, and if their objective um, is to basically my way or the highway. That's just you. And unfortunately, these people that gets into this, you know, um, meeting sessions or diplomatic, quote unquote diplomatic. I don't know if they're very effective in diplomacy if they can't freaking figure out to de-escalate a solution to a civil war that's not even that big of a war situation. It's happening in the eastern side of Ukraine, and now there's people in the West, and mostly the news organizations and people that want this war to persist, are trying to fuel the flame. It seems to me. Okay, but they're not the ones that are going to go into the battlefield. They're not the ones that are going to carry arms and march into a front theater of war and try to you know uh, get the other side to basically surrender to their ideologies. They're not the ones that's being disrupted. Their lives are, I mean, the lives of so many people in the eastern side of Ukraine have been snuffed out, their assets destroyed, their buildings ruined, and most of them are just regular people that they just want peace. Every Eastern European country and every Central European country want peace in the region because they just don't see the reason for this escalation of a war conflict that is a civil war that is definitely solvable. You can fix things. I mean, it should have been fixed a long time ago, before even a 2-year timeline had take place, before the innocent civilians have perished, before so many collateral damages got pulled into a war that shouldn't have even happened. Yeah, I don't know, folks. You can't possibly have decision makers make decision reflecting on 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Unfortunately, it proves that they're just not able to analyze the new world marketplace. It just proves that they are not ready to be the decision maker in the year 2024. I mean, when they were growing up, there was no smartphone, there was no social media. When these people were making decisions whether they want to engage in a war conflict, they've never heard of podcasting. When they were growing up, when you tell them there's a cloud in the sky, they think, well, that cloud is going to produce rain. They didn't know that you can store freaking data on the cloud in the year 2024. When you tell them, back then when they were growing up, the blockchain technology would be that freaking blockchain on their bike, on their bicycles. That's how they would associate that terminology back then when they were growing up. And yet today, blockchain uh, is commonly known for the people that grew up in this generation, in this decade, as a totally different concept. Okay, When I tell people every time I walk around and promote my book and tell people about, the face economics concept, which is the utilization of the social media platform in economic development, they're like, bah, it blows their freaking mind thinking that you can build an economy using social media. It's like they look at me, I'm like I'm some sort of, crazy clown talking about building capacity and developing markets using the social media platform. Okay, folks, so that's what you call stuck on stupid. Okay, and there's tons of people that are stuck on stupid, and they want to be stuck on stupid because they didn't prepare for, what's to come. They didn't educate themselves. They didn't look into, the evolution of the marketplace. They just didn't want to leave that comfort zone. They want to be stuck on stupid forever. And when you have people that are constantly stuck on stupid, they want everybody else to be stuck on stupid with them to justify their stupidity. I mean, that's the totally honest truth about being stuck on stupid. Okay, folks. The world will continue to evolve. The world, the people in this world, especially those that knows how to use their brain, they'll find a way to build their capacity. They'll educate themselves. They're going to be that problem solver. They'll look for a solution to a pre-existing condition. They're going to be, the consultants of the future. They're going to be the subject matter experts of the future. They're going to be the decision maker of the future. They're going to be the politicians in the future. They're not going to want to be stuck on stupid. Trust me, I've dealt with people that are extremely versatile, and they are just, they're just, their brain capacity is evolving by the second, and not by the decade, by the second. The brain capacity is evolving by the second. So when I run for the US Senate as an independent candidate, I wasn't even given the opportunity to debate my opponents during a freaking pandemic where, social distancing was enforced. There was people aren't allowed to congregate, so I couldn't talk to anyone. Everything was shut down, in 2022. So there was no way for me to compete other than competing virtually. And they did have an online debate, a virtual debate, but they didn't even invite me to that debate. Think about it. As an independent candidate that brings something that is from this decade, from the year 2020, someone that's been developing markets throughout my career, someone that's been exposed to the social media era and before the social media era, and is now utilizing the social media era to build markets and capacity in those markets. I would think, people in the state of Virginia and even in the US would want to try to listen into some of the things that I've got to say, because very few people grew up in a society where there was a social media platform environment. The markets didn't evolve with a social media presence back then in the 1940s, 1950s, 60s. Okay. Even, the computing capacity back then was fairly limited. Today, all we need to have is a, smartphone, and we can start a business using just a smartphone on social media. Okay, folks. So this war in Ukraine needs to end. The region needs to return to normalcy. The people, that perish because of this preventable war. In my opinion, it could have been prevented a long, long time ago. It should have been prevented anyway. But decision makers that are in charge, I don't know who pulls the strings, but somebody's pulling the strings, should find a way to de-escalate the situation and return the region to normalcy, save lives, prevent additional escalation of, the war of the stuck on stupid. I call this war the war of the stuck on stupid, because in the year 2024, there shouldn't be a war anymore. There shouldn't be any human suffering, conflict, hardship. Okay, folks. If countries want to build capacity, they can do that. I mean, it doesn't take very long to build the capacity of your population, especially with, you know, the tools we now have to build our market capacity. Okay, folks. With that said, my name is Al Mina, concept author of the Face Economics platform, the utilization of the social media environment in economic development worldwide. Thank you for your time. I hope the very best Valentine's Day. Let's love each other. Let's make love, okay, and not war. I say, but seriously, folks, thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to basically provoke your thoughts, you know, have you consider thinking outside of the box and even making that box bigger. Okay. Yeah, I don't think like anybody else and everybody else. And sometimes you're kind of labeled as somebody that um, you know, it's kind of odd or strange or weird, or whatever. But that's okay. I've kind of gotten used to that, and that's all right. But you know, again, human suffering, you know, shouldn't be happening in the year 2024 anymore. Okay, I've written books on how to best solve these pre-existing condition and build market capacity, institutional development, coaching, subject matter experts, and executives throughout my career. Um, I've even tried to help my state and country to evolve, but I hit that wall where, you know, the people that are the gatekeepers of that wall are the same, you know, people that wants everybody to be stuck on stupid. You know, that's a term from the South. You know, Virginia is somewhat under, you know, the South, you know, Washington D.C. South, but I no longer adhere to, you know, just two party system, you know, in politics. I adhere to what's relevant and what's needed in today's reality in the year 2024. So yeah. Anyway, folks, thank you for your time. I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you for listening to our podcast on Spotify. Make sure to share our, you know, Spotify platform with your family and friends. Subscribe. You know, if you feel compelled to help us out, you know, buy me a coffee or something. I would appreciate that. And also, I'm going to make this podcast video available on our YouTube channel, Face Economics TV YouTube channel, so you can listen and also watch the podcast. That said, thank you so much. My name again is Al Mina. Take care.